Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners. As we know, the best leaders are lifetime learners. They're not afraid to ask for help, they're not afraid to continue finding answers and helping others. Civic leaders are those that really have intention on helping the people that they were elected to help. And sometimes that turns into just helping yourself. So today and moving forward, we're going to have a Redondo Beach edition of Leaders and Learners. And we're going to talk to community leaders, we're going to talk to residents, and we're going to talk to some elected officials when they have the time, because most of the time they should be out serving their public. We want to make sure that some of the issues that come up in Redondo get clarity, right? Sometimes when people do not want to tell the truth or be upfront about their intentions, it kind of muddies the water. And for people that are really seeking answers, seeking understanding about the city that they live in, about bills and laws that happen to govern that city, or just resources, that can be a little frustrating. They don't always want to go to city council meetings and wait hours to get their answers. And sometimes it's just difficult. So, what I'm going to be doing is getting questions from our residents, which I do. I hold several leadership positions in this city, in our county, and nationally. And it brings me joy to find answers to questions to help our constituents in these cities and communities understand what is going on. It gets a little convoluted, but I'm going to bring you some people that can help answer some of these questions today and moving forward. Because as a leader, one thing I know is I don't have all the answers, and I'm okay saying that I don't. What's most important is that the people that are bringing their opinions, their facts that they know, and any of the resources that they have, is that this is a safe place, right? We have to understand that we do not have to agree in order to be able to state your opinion, in order to voice your concerns, and just simply ask questions. I have friends that I don't always agree with. We don't. We are a culmination of our experiences. And not too many people have had experiences like me, so I don't expect them to understand the way that I understand. But it helps to know that there are other people that might have the same concerns or just have a differing opinion. It helps us grow. So today we're going to grow in Redondo's community. I'm going to bring you some of the community members. Come on in, Arnett, Elliot, Chris Voisey,
Hi.
Paul, one of my favorite people. And I'm going to get started with AES. Okay. AES seems to be this just place, this mythical place that we can't do anything with. It won't go away. It's not pretty. But I know that we've talked about and I've heard about there being maybe some park there, some homes there. I don't know. But I'm trying to understand, why can't we ever discuss, because it does not get discussed, having homes in the AES site? Who can help me understand and help the residents understand why AES cannot be a place where housing goes?
That discussion really starts and ends with the city council currently. They're the ones that have decided that homes cannot be zoned on AES. And they follow a pattern of basically South Redondo residents voting against any kind of housing there. But that's private property. So the problem with that is we're not going to get anything else down there that they want. It may be zoned for a park, but that is not economically viable for the owner of the property, the current owner of the property. So we just end up with loggerheads. The owner has said he's not going to work with the current leadership in Redondo Beach when it comes to developing his property. He has no problem keeping it operating. He gets $14 million from AES to keep it operating, and it pays for his bills. He's happy to keep doing that. And when the headwinds, die, and he can see an opportunity to do something more with it other than park, then he will do that. I understand his position and why he backed out of the deal that they were pushing on him, because it was just not it wasn't viable for him, and he lost control. And it's his property; it's all his property. So I don't think anyone in Redondo should hold their breath and hope that they're going to get a park there anytime soon. That is never going to happen in the next 20 years unless there's some compromise. So you may remember on the GPAC, part of our mandate was that we did not discuss the AES property when we started the GPAC 3 years ago. It was just left outside of our purview because they just said that something else is going to happen to that. So, it was never discussed. So we never could zone housing on it when the GPAC did the housing element. I will say one thing about the housing element is the GPAC presented one to the Planning Commission that was compliant, and it was as fair as it could be, exploring all the housing opportunities along PCH in South Redondo. That all got torn up at the city council level. And that's why we're in the problems that we are with the state right now regarding the housing element. But back to AES, it's just a stalemate, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. I live probably closer to the power plant than anybody else that is involved in Redondo Beach. And I look at it every day. The power lines are right above my house. And believe me, I've wanted to see this to go away for 35, 40 years. Since I was a little kid, I've lived here, and I've looked at this and said, try to get rid of it. So that's why that I fight against it, and I want to get rid of it. And I want to give the owner an avenue to get out and do something, other than power generation. If we're not careful, we're going to end up with a battery park down there. And that's my biggest fear right now, continued industrial use down there.
Yeah. And I think, I would just add one point of clarity that, Paul, you mentioned is that this is private land to start with. And it's private land that is zoned to be for utility usage, such as a power plant or battery storage or anything like that. And they do have some rights for that. And trying to push them out and muscle them out just with legislation is going to hurt all of us versus trying to work together to come to an agreement. And as you said, Paul, we talked about, we had 3 things on the GPAC that were out of scope to talk about. It was the waterfront, it was the AES plant, and the Galleria. Even though we entertained a couple of conversations on the Galleria, these were things that were already in play. There were things going on with it. So we didn't have that in the spec from the city council as it was given to us.
You mentioned, Paul, that something was rejected. The plan or the proposal was rejected. What proposal was that?
There's a number of proposals that have gone up to vote. One was, I believe, in Measure J, and I was actually part of the 501c3 that proposed what was called the Village Plan. And it was a development that incorporated actually a rather large wetlands in the middle of it. And it was actually a major hotel development with some, residential connected to that hotel. An idea that you saw during the time back then. And it was an advisory vote. It was a choice between what at the time was called Hart Park and the Village Plan. And that was actually the most lopsided of the votes back then. I think it won 55% to 45%. All the subsequent votes have gotten closer and closer. People may have voted against housing down there, but believe me, it's never been a majority of Redondo residents. Only about 6,500 people may vote in favor of park down there, but there's 40,000 voters in Redondo Beach. These are not, this is not a citywide approval of what their plans, their park plans. So I don't know. It just that's one of the plans that gets rejected. The subsequent plans have been different levels of development and things like that. And even though they get rejected, it's interesting. Some people that are supporters of the current mayor have also proposed types of housing down there or types of office and types of development. All of it gets rejected, and it's a real shame. And I'll tell you, I know a couple of the people that have the potential, they have the financial bandwidth to develop that area, and they want nothing to do with Redondo Beach. Absolutely, they just said, I could do this in a second. There's people that have developed the entire medical corridor of Lomita Boulevard. They're very, very, and they're from the community, and they just don't want to get involved down there. one of the worst stories I heard was, we just celebrated the Rams winning the Super Bowl, and we saw how Stan Kroenke could develop the entire SoFi Stadium on his own. Guess where he wanted to build his Rams practice facility? He wanted to build it right here in Redondo Beach. And it got shot down because it didn't have enough open space. Although 2 of the fields were actually going to be public, it didn't have that. It's a real shame what's happened in Redondo when it comes to AAS. We could have been past this 10 years ago. But and I think about the low impact of a NFL football, practice facility right here. The Raiders used to practice in El Segundo. They're not big, high impact things. There's just a minimum of coaching staff and players. And hey, it's the NFL right here in Redondo. But no, that got screwed. So we end up with a power plant. We're going to end up with a power plant for quite a while.
Chris, you had something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the whole general trend that we're seeing is outside folks or even people in Redondo are scared to go and try to do anything because it seems like we're stuck on as far as a very loud minority of folks that are going around and scaring everybody off from anything that's changed. We are stagnant. We're not improving anything. We've been talking about this power plant, for the past, it goes well beyond what I've lived in the area. I remember the past 22 years here, just watching this happen and following it. And that's actually how I got here today to talk about the political situation, was that power plant and the proposals, the heart of the city, the village plan, all the different things that were going on. And one by one, I see people just getting scared off, which apparently a bunch of people are very proud of that ability and like to flaunt that. And I don't call that progress. I don't call that a win. That's
well, listen, let me say this. As many leaders, mayors, governors that I've worked with, I had the opportunity to have a sit down with the mayor of Inglewood. And our conversation was really about development, about growth, and how you make that happen, right? Here's the short answer. Developers need to trust the leadership of the city, and then they can bring great things to your city. Yeah. When developers do not trust that you can get it done, that you have control over what's going on, that you are trusted by your constituency and the other leaders in your city, you can't get anything done. That's just coming from someone we saw get an entire stadium built and half of the world to tune in to his city. Inglewood was not the same Inglewood even 5 years ago. So if he can get that done and he's giving me the recipe, it makes sense that when you can't get things done, people do not trust that you have the ability to make things happen. But like you just said, maybe that's the goal.
Well, yeah, I also think that's the subtext is they actually don't want anything to happen, so they make everything impossible. But one of the major supporters of the mayor has always pushed office space all over the city, and also trying to attract a major employer to bring a large office development there at AES. And I could tell you that a Google or Amazon, those guys are never going to come here. They're going to look just like all the other major developers. They've looked, they've seen it is fraught with problems. So they're not going to get the control that they insist on and actually required to do what they want. It's not going to happen because they're going to say, well, yeah, you can come and build an office park here on half the land. You're going to give us the other half because it's already zoned for park. No one's going to take that. And no business person's going to take that. So we're stuck.
It reminds me of the books, and I've got a young son that just turned 4. If you give a mouse a cookie or any of those, right, they're going to want to do this and that. And it always comes back to reminding them that they wanted the cookie. If you give the land an office space, well, they're going to want to put things on it. They're going to want to change the roads. They're going to add the traffic. But then they're going to want the residential units to actually support that, which then brings them back to the office space to support all of that. And it's that full circle that it really, it doesn't, we have to have it all basically. And we don't. We're looking too myopic here.
Well, to summarize this in one or two sentences for residents that want to know, why don't we have any new toys? Why don't we have any cool new spaces to go and play? What is your response?
Well, the initiative process has brought this to a grinding halt, because people can get crazy things on the ballot and they can pass, with these bumper sticker slogans without any thought down the road. We're on the GPAC. We're thinking of a 25-year plan. I don't think anybody had agreed with any of these previous initiatives that have rezoned things down there. Thought 25 years down the line. It's a shame. And I wish I had better news. The only light I see on the horizon is the state stepping in, and the state saying, well, we're going to have to, allow some housing down there, or we need the power. That's the nightmare scenario for Redondo. Is the city and the county, the district needs the power. And so we need a battery backup down there. So what did we end up with? That's going to be the worst case scenario. Sorry to be such gloom and doom, but it's what it is.
Listen, I asked for honesty because that's what people need to hear, right? Not filibuster, not spin, not finger pointing, but real answers to real questions. Chris?
I agree. We're just going to sit and wait, right? The developers that are buying these properties and people that are making the investments in this, they're often willing to wait. And what I'm most fearful of is the longer you wait through some of this stuff, the more power they'll get eventually. And this could backfire and then turn out to be completely the opposite of what we want, because they do have the patience. We need to get something in and do something with our city and turn it into what we really do want. We need to come down and figure it out and agree upon that somehow, not just block everything that gets put in front of us. We need to work together to compromise, to come to agreement, to be truthful with everybody about what's going on. And, once we do that, maybe we can move forward with some of these projects and do something with, this great land. We have an amazing city with a lot of assets. We've got the water, we've got the ability to get it in and out with the traffic, we've got transit coming, we've got all these pieces, but we're going to be this little tiny community that's stuck in the middle of nowhere. I remember hearing years ago in a city council meeting, somebody asking, well, why don't we just make it like it was in 1962? Seriously. I might have the year wrong. It might have been 63 that she said, but this is unrealistic, right?
What is that? When people like me weren't allowed here? Okay, never mind.
Well, we're not going. Yeah.
And the one thing
it's just not a realistic thing. We have to move forward. We have to think of the future. Like I said, I think of my kids, what they're going to want to do, what they're going to have. Right now, I fear that they're going to continue this battle, and they'll probably see something done with it in their later years of life, maybe older than I am.
So here's the question.
If I could add, the owner, people think that, the owner is going to get antsy sitting on his money. He paid $25 million for 50 plus acres of waterfront property. He's already made a lot of money just with that investment. He's can land bank this forever. And now he's got people paying him $14 million to sit on it. So he's got all the patience of the world. And it is one of the biggest lies in Redondo is that we can make anything happen down there. We can't. Right. We can only stop things from happening. And believe we have. We've stopped everything from happening down there.
Okay, here's the uncomfortable question. Why don't they want anything new, in your opinion, here? Why are they blocking everything? And we're not just talking about AES.
People. They don't want any more people here. I mean, it underlines almost all of planning in Redondo Beach. Anything, what we see, it's build things to block any development which invites any more people into Redondo.
I'd go a step further and say it's fear of change, right? It's fear of having to readapt and go through what it's going to take to transform something, to actually make it happen. I don't think there's any conservative effort to make something happen. It's more to block it, as Paul was saying. Once those changes come in, that does change. It gives us more opportunities. It could be more people. It will be a change in traffic patterns, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, maybe neutral, right? We see, like all the things that we've talked about over the years, you go back 10 years ago when a lot of this was discussed and how we're trying to do these communities and plan it out and have more, pedestrian and bike friendly usage. And people are like, oh, that'll never happen. I totally disagree, because I use the bike pass and the walking pass and everything. And they are a lot more popular, like significantly than they were back then, because we've added these to it. The bike lane down on what's it called down there? Why am I drawing? Harbor Drive. Yeah, and things like that. You look how successful this is. This is going to continue. People have learned to get out and see more. And, again, it's that fear of change. Every change means we got to have some compromise, and we just don't have that right now.
Well, let's talk about the lawsuit. Okay. Since we're talking about change, I know that it came about sometime around the time we were working on trying to change the pier. Okay. What is the lawsuit about that keeps bringing drama into city operations and city politics and getting people thrown off of commissions? What is that about? Because most of us don't care, but we have to keep hearing about it. I need someone to explain.
I'm going to jump in just quickly and add something. Arnett, I'll let you follow on me on this one if you don't mind.
Sure.
First of all, this has nothing to do with the city itself. For years, a number of people have been seeing this trend of manipulation of the voters and the messaging that's going out to them. Different groups being formed by the same group of three, if you will, calling it different things for the environment, for the waterfront, for the village, and creating these groups to go in and manipulate that message and working together with either elected or to be elected officials. Well, we saw some inconsistencies in the campaigns that were being run, specifically with the Rescue Our Waterfront and the citizens of Nils Narenheim and Bill Brand and their committees around them, where they were working together. And we firmly believed, and still I think do, that their messaging did violate what is the campaigning laws. And we took the action to go in and use a private attorney lawsuit to be able to enforce this. And it picked up some traction. We had some very interesting discussions with various people. And we ended up having an attorney that, helped to find some funding for it, because this is something we couldn't have done on our own. And the terms and conditions on that were, worked out. What we were trying to do and focused on was something that had nothing to do with the actual city operations whatsoever. And we wanted to expose this and show that, yes, these people are constantly working together. You can't find a picture of them separated during any of these campaigns and continuing afterwards. It's still going on, and all these groups keep getting formed. So we had this lawsuit. All we asked for was them to come clean and just say it. Didn't expect it would ever go as far as it did, in all honesty. I don't think I would have predicted that years later we'd see all this. But we did have a lot of things that happened, and there were, a lot of judges have looked over this, and even from the perspective of the defendants who were, Nils Narenheim, Bill Brand, Wayne Craig, and the Rescue Our Waterfront crew and their teams, and you have to include all this together in it. They went and are claiming a lot of things about this, and even tried to have this thrown out multiple times, several. Because it was a bad lawsuit. And that wasn't the fact. The judges kept on saying yes, right down to the appeals judge, who even removed the terms that they wrote on the paperwork for the judgment and removed it and rewrote it. And it's currently actually sitting in the appeal with the California Supreme Court to go in and remove the fee order on it, which is currently an uncollectible judgment that's out there. And again, it has nothing to do with the city. It has nothing to do with anything other than we just wanted to expose it. These folks are working together, wanted them to correct their paperwork and move on. And I don't know, Arnett, did I miss anything there?
Well, not really. I would just add to it that, at every turn, they have changed the message into, it's just a perversion. For example, They continue to say that a Superior Court judge called you and I shills for a sham lawsuit. Well, the appeals court threw out all of that terminology, which, by the way, came into play. It was given to the trial court judge, Judge Mackey, by the defense attorney, Brand's attorney, that said that labeled us as such. And as the appeals court noted, there is no legal definition or charge, if you will, for that particular terminology. Excuse me. In addition, as you said, with regard to the lawsuit going as far as it did, I never thought it would. I never did. I figured that they would say, oh, yeah, okay, so you want us to do is to amend this statement. Well, let's work with the wording and see what we can come up with. Instead, at every turn, including the mediation efforts, they came away saying, we tried to shake them down for $500,000. That's a lot. You remember
They
that?
didn't even show up.
They did, right. But they came up with these messages that they would then put all over social media. And when I say they, it is, as Chris said, it's the same group of people masquerading as under different organizations or operating under different organizations, but with the same end goals. The other thing is that at the point, which was fairly early in the course of the, before it got to trial, months certainly before it ever came to trial, there was a motion for a summary judgment by the defense that was denied by the exact same trial judge who ended up, ruling in their favor. That gave plenty of cause for this lawsuit to go through, which means that there was no, it's not an unreasonable charge or an unreasonable ask that we were making. And, the fact that the trial judge did based on the reasoning that because we weren't paying for the lawsuit, if anyone has had any encounters with the legal field, or with lawsuits are extremely expensive. They have the advantage of, and when by they, I mean Brand Rescue Our Waterfront itself is a PAC, a political action committee, which means they are constantly getting in donations to fund their lawsuits. In fact, they even use a nonprofit 501c3 to urge their people or their followers to contribute so that they could get a tax deduction. But again, they have the ability to raise funds. As candidates, they have the ability to raise funds. As private residents, Chris and I do not have that ability. And so, in fact, funded lawsuits by an outside entity or by another entity is actually smiled upon by the courts, because otherwise we would not. And just one more thing, and that is the reason I participated in the lawsuit, outside of the fact that I was so excited over the infrastructure improvements that we still need. There's no needed, it still need, present tense, down at our pier and harbor areas. Center Cal had shown throughout their the whole process from the time they were selected to represent or to make to revitalize our harbor. They had made every effort to ingratiate, and when I say ingratiate, I mean support the residents and the everyone from the Chamber of Commerce to every entity in this city, including individual residents, to try to become a part of our community, to show that they would be good stewards of our waterfront area. And instead they were totally vilified. I heard I couldn't believe that at first, but I heard with my own ears Niels and Bill tell people as they were gathering signatures or, advocating for their side for Measure C. Oh, Measure C is not going to kill the project. It's only going to make it smaller. And they did everything they could to anything, they would say anything, I believe, to have gotten Measure C passed. And, even that was, I mean, it's a moot point at this time, but Measure C was after the vesting of the Senator Cal's rights in the waterfront. So it literally had no effect on it anyway. But they have continued this personal vendetta, and that's exactly what it is, a personal vendetta against Chris and myself in a public space where it is a complete abuse of the public trust and their position as mayor and council people. What they're doing, it is carrying out a personal vendetta.
Yep.
So what it sounds like is what you said earlier, which is everything gets blocked, no new development. Anyone that tries to bring a new development may suffer some type of personal harm, personal attack to their reputation or whatever. If you have leadership in the city, you could possibly lose it for going against the will of this now majority, which is we don't want anything here. We don't want no new people. We don't want nothing here. And if you disagree with us, it could cost you. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And
they are advocating now, and they've gone so far as to give money to a 501c3 without going through the proper channels, the MOUs. That was thrown out the window for a specific 501c3 charity that Bill Brand actually is a founder of, and that is South Bay Parkland Conservancy. They want that to get the money, and they're giving the money to them without, again, going through the proper channels.
Wait, who's giving the money to them?
The city. The city has written checks to South Bay Parkland Conservancy for a couple of projects that they've done, including, now this is a volunteer organization, including direct compensation to the former president of South Bay Parkland Conservancy. And it's not right, and the mayor's wife is sitting on the board, I believe. There are people who have been working and volunteering in this city for years, yourself, Tanya, included, myself included, with different organizations, and we are not getting money from the city for that volunteer work, but his pet charity is.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's funny, like this whole thing, again, going back to the question of the lawsuit, this was to expose, what we've seen as this corruption going on, this funneling of money, and it continues. And then, of course, the removal of me from the GPAC, which, I don't see how that makes any sense whatsoever, since it was supposed to represent all forms of lifestyle. So no matter which way they want to claim it, it's not true. They made up a thing on a judgment that they had to change the rules, and they actually screwed up the first time. They did it for commissions, which then they were told by the city attorney did not include the committees, including the GPAC. So then they brought it back, and guess what? You know how much money was spent, our city resources spent to go and fund this personal vendetta that they had? When's the last time you heard us talking about any of this, right? This is just water under the bridge. It's gone. We'll work on it. We try to go and bring some of this up, but it's being brought up into the spotlight constantly by this group. Meanwhile, if you really look at it, you've got one councilman who's actually facing charges and being removed from the state bar with his law degree. You have another personal friend of the mayor who is on the committee and a commission who is constantly suing the city and winning, and has formed another one of these shell groups, the Building a Better Redondo. And you have this whole funneling of other money going into the Parkland Conservancy. It's like this constant rush to go in and divert. So, hey, let's focus on Voisey and push him out and get everybody talking about that, which I honestly haven't seen many people doing. I'm here to try to represent what people are asking. Love the city, want to see it move forward. But using city resources for personal vendettas, that's inappropriate. We did not show up at council meetings with this unless something was brought up that brought us into it due to their bringing it up. We have not gone in and distracted city resources at all from this whatsoever.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a question.
Oh.
As a resident, I have a question. I saw an article that Jim Light had sued the city, but I know that he plays a pretty powerful role in leadership in the city right now. Can somebody explain that to me?
So unlike ourselves who sued the individuals who were responsible, because it's not about Redondo Beach itself, Jim Light has sued the city twice. He will very proudly tell you that he did so because there was something funny going on with council. Well, what's funny, and he's been awarded enormous lawsuits, and I mean in the mid 6-figure range. He's a harbor commissioner. He's also president of the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. Remember, these same people are involved in various organizations, but it is the exact same people over and over again. Jim feels that because he sued the city, because the city was doing something wrong, that he's some kind of local hero. I argue with that because I know that all those lawsuits were paid to him and his attorney, Frank Angel, with taxpayer money. And that's money that we simply do not have. We do not have it to even keep the city running at a good pace. I mean, let alone to make the repairs that we need to make. But I wanted to back up, Tanya, if I might, on something that has been said over and over again, and that is that Chris and I are guilty of perjury. First of all, Chris and I were the plaintiffs, so we were not on trial. They were on trial. The judge determined that they weren't up to any funny stuff, and that's okay. I understand that. Chris understands that. We're not running around bad-mouthing these people because they won. On the other hand, they continue to say that we're guilty of perjury. There have been no charges of perjury brought against either of us, and there will not be, because we simply have not committed perjury in their definition. And maybe they don't know what it means.
Well, they have attempted, right? They have gone and attempted that. But the court has basically denied any action on it.
Right.
Because like you said, Arnett, it just did not exist. Right. We've stated everything that we knew. We answered everything honestly that was presented to us. Everybody tried to do the best. And, I'm going to throw one more thing going back, and apologies, we're bouncing here a little bit, but these lawsuits that you asked about, Tanya, and with Jim Light and Frank Angel and so on, a lot of these are based on the CEQA, and which is, Paul, you can help me a second here, but essentially it's going and evaluating the environmental quality assessment. And if there's a violation in some of the proposals, and once somebody finds anything that is in disagreement on it, and that there is even one out of a dozen things, the win goes to the people that are the plaintiffs against it. So instantly that goes back. It's one of the more easier cash cows, if you will, to win for a lawsuit and cover your costs of going into it, because you will get your costs back probably just finding one of a dozen.
Yeah.
And then interestingly, the CEQA laws are being reviewed at the state level. They've really squashed any kind of progress in the state. People will find some little flaw in something and stop entire developments, or any kind of, and deter people to filing new development ideas. it's fine time that they get revised, because people now have seen it as a cash cow. And to go back to your original question, this all just comes down to who supports the mayor and who doesn't. And if you do, you're on one side. If you don't, you will get the wrath of that majority right now.
Well, I'll have to share my own stories later, but I digress. So listen, this is all very convoluted. I'm sure after today, there'll probably be some people that have even more questions, because even after hearing it so much, I still get confused on why it really permeates in operations of the city. So I'm going to allow the residents to continue to ask their questions and bring them back to you all so it can be more specific. That was a general overview. I guess I can appreciate that, even though it's still confusing. But I want to go to another confusing issue for many of the residents, which happens to be cannabis. Now, many people think they already voted for cannabis or against it. And now there's a petition, and now we're going to have to vote again. So I need someone to explain what is going on with cannabis in Redondo Beach. And I'm going to go ahead and throw it to Elliot, and so he can tell us what he knows. What you know, Elliot?
Okay, I could jump in here, and let me first just say, the overall discussion is very enlightening. I think there's a lot of overlap, oddly, between this political power that seems to be blocking development and any progress, and the cannabis issue, although it's a standalone issue, how it ducktails into it. And then oddly enough, we're very politically active in a lot of other cities, and I've heard this similar story so many times. It's different, but it's always the same, and it's a sad commentary on politics today. I will not digress beyond that. But anyway, so the cannabis issue, Prop 64 passed, and it gave the cities local control, which means you can ban cannabis or you could approve it. And then basically what happens to the state is just a rubber stamp. Now, it's a very hard bureaucratic rubber stamp, but you have to get approved locally. Then you could go apply at the state. So the result of that has been cities that are very slow to act. There's about 68-70% of cities that have not passed any cannabis measures. Now, there's been studies on this. I won't get too deep into the lobbying aspect of it, but the same amount of cannabis is going to be used in Redondo Beach, whether it's legal or not legal. So we might as well make it safe, keep it away from schools and other sensitive uses, get the best operators in. We're really pro-labor. All our stores are union, so we add that to the initiative as well. We admit it's an open advantage, but we think it's good policy. So anyway, what we did is, and we've done this in other cities, it's not specific to Redondo Beach, but any initiative with 10% of the registered voters can be brought before the voters in the next election. So I think we needed 4,700 signatures. Don't quote me on that, but we got 6,600. Almost all of them were valid. They've approved them. So then they took it to council. Council had multiple options. One was to adopt it, just say, hey, we like this so much, we're going to adopt it. Or two, place it on a bunch of different possible ballots. And what ended up happening is we are now on the March Our Initiative, which was funded by Catalyst and another group called Tradecraft, 50-50, paid for the signatures, all the funding, fairly expensive process. The signature gathering being the heavy lift, and we go to door to make sure they're valid. We don't have any issues. So that will be on the March 2023 ballot. In the meantime, it looks like the city of Redondo Beach is now going to move because they have a metaphorical gun to their head, not to use a crude metaphor. We got 70% support on the initiative. We didn't do specific polling in Redondo Beach. We've taken tons of polls. The issue of cannabis is fairly settled. And we're confident that if it goes to the ballot, it would pass. In a normal situation, we'll get a negotiation or, some reasonable, sit down or willingness to meet. And look, we don't want to come in and jam it down Redondo Beach's throat. That was never our intention. In fact, if I could go back, I regret maybe our outreach not being a little bit better. But nonetheless, the cool kids, as I refer to them, have decided just to take this into their own hand. They're going to write the policy how they want. I don't want to speculate too much, but I suspect, as this happens in most cities, cronyism and their friends are going to be at the top of the list of, how these licenses get awarded. So I don't know what's going to happen between now and March of 23, but no matter what, we get to put our initiative on the ballot. Who's been the most honest broker, and oddly enough, I was told before, bad information, has been Councilwoman MD. Now, she doesn't agree with most of or a lot of the stuff that's in there, but, as you said in the lead off to the show, no big deal. Let's sit down at the table, figure something out. As an advocate in the space, we have two objectives here. One, we always try to win. We're pretty good at winning in an open process, but if we don't, we do want to expand safe and legal access of cannabis, especially in cities they want it. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the next little bit. I'm reading a thing about the steering committee. Yeah, they took 4 years and did nothing. By the way, usually the people on these committees, I hear some of them are nice guys. They're not in the trenches. They don't know anything about cannabis. They bloviate on a panel here and there, but they're not really in the game, so to speak. So, we've been in 30 different processes, and, we know what works. We know what doesn't work. And we're open-minded to work with the city council. Again, the one that's impressed me has been Councilwoman MD. Just we've had a couple discussions. No secret about that. Interestingly enough, hope I'm not breaking a confidence. I don't think I am. I have spoken with the real estate developer who has the land over there, the 50 acres, and who knows what could happen. My personal opinion is, especially after listening to this, and, I'm not really trying to break news, but I guess maybe a little bit, we are going to recall Obagi. So we'll see how that goes. And to me, although at this point, there's going to be cannabis in Redondo Beach. I consider that a win. We're going to win licenses up and down the state, whether we get licensed or not. That's how it is. My real passion, I always say CEO is my day job, is political change and advocacy. And just from what I've seen in Redondo Beach, and it's been reaffirmed here, the plan is to recall Obagi, change the majority to a more reasonable group of people that want to represent progress and the citizens. And the idea that somehow you can't have low income housing near the beach, which I have heard, I won't say from who, even people in the media, to me is the most offensive thing ever. And I'm from Long Beach. I don't know Redondo Beach politics that great, but now I'm starting to get in deep. Our little Grinch mailer of Obagi. Yeah. And then, by the way, just one funny hypocrisy, and I won't bloviate too much. They invited us to a meeting. We called it the Red Wedding. It was like the rudest, meanest, just like inappropriate thing ever. Like, if you want to hear us out, hear us out. And Obagi was the biggest, not nice guy. Trying to keep it clean here. So I have an Oppo guy. We looked him up. Turns out he represented cannabis clients, and he's on his way to being disbarred, allegedly. So, we circulated a mailer, and, the question was asked, why do I want to recall him? Justice, fairness. And if I'm being totally honest, I want to send a message to the political class up and down the state that Catalyst does what it says. And if you don't act in a fair way, we will take you out. We have no problem doing that. And we wish that this was a game of goodwill and people that actually represented their constituents. But sometimes fear is a better motivator. So if we could successfully recall Obagi, I think it's for the good of Redondo Beach, or I would not do it. It is not connected to the cannabis issue. I've spoken to many citizens, and if we could take out Obagi in a recall, it's up to the voters. Let them decide what they want to do. I think it would send a message, around the state that you can't just act with impunity. There is recourses in this democracy that we could utilize. And again, on the cannabis issue, we're using the initiative process to open up cities. Redondo Beach, for whatever reasons, just kind of become a flashpoint. So that's, again, I don't want to go on and on, but just a little bit of where it's at. So we are officially going to see the March 2023 ballot. We have 88 days before that to pull our measure back, if the proponent is so willing. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Got it. Any
Elliot,
other? Go ahead.
Elliot, I have a question for you. With all the cities you've dealt with, I'm sure, yeah, I've seen a lot of the numbers saying that LA County has supported the legalization of marijuana use and cannabis use. I've also seen a lot of things get voted on in LA County, like Measure HH and Measure HHH, that actually people gave money to help the homeless. It all sounds really good in the ballot box, in the booth. But when it ends up being like, okay, well, we're going to help the homeless right next to you, or we're going to put a cannabis dispensary right next to you, that's when all these things stop. When you bring it down to the local level, you get that resistance. And I understand it, but I've seen a lot of people say like this, oh, well, California support this overwhelmingly. People in South Redondo support this. We've seen the votes. They supported by 65%. And not when it comes down to their home, not when it gets into their neighborhood. So I wonder if you've seen that in other cities and how you've done it how you've assured the people that things are good. And I have a follow-up to your question or your answer.
Okay. Look, fair question. The first thing I would say is that's the whole point of the initiative process. Let the voters decide. And I agree that just because you voted for Prop 64 doesn't mean you'd vote for a local initiative. I think you would be surprised if you came to our stores. One of the, I think, most common myths is it's somehow going to bring blight. It does not. I'm in a high-end retail corridor in Belmont Shore. Interestingly enough, she's evolved on the issue. One of my favorite people in politics today, she's running for mayor, was staunchly anti-cannabis. She was an OC prosecutor. We get along really good, just because, I think a lot of the anything she ever wanted, as far as, whether it be how my security guards were dressed or any residents' concerns, we did our best to address them. You wouldn't really even know we were there, right? We don't put the weed leaf out. We don't put a big green cross out. And the irony for me is on that same street, there's 14 bars. I used to have an office there. There was fist fights, urination, vomiting, not to do the comparison, but, most of our customers are in or out in 10 minutes. They're real quiet. They go home. We have very specific, we call it the 20 commandments. If you open your bag, even near the premises, you're banned for life. There's no smoking, anything like that. So, and these are really nice retail storefronts. They're not, like the old trap stuff that you might be thinking about. As far as the recusal of Obaji, I saw that come in. He personally sued me on one of the most frivolous cases of all time. So I definitely think he should have been sued. It was a lease from one of his clients, and it was from one of my entities. His client didn't pay me. I was a nice guy. I had a guarantee. She didn't have any money. I didn't chase it down. She ended up surrendering the keys in an eviction. He came for 150 grand. I think we gave him $4 grand to go away, or some really low amount. It was super frivolous. So not only has he represented cannabis clients, he's alleged, let me be clear, alleged, but the evidence seems pretty strong. He has actually sued me personally. And I sent this to the Easy Reader newspaper, and look, everybody says this, but this was one of the most ridiculous ambulance chasing lawsuits. And all that's fine. It's the game. You want to represent your client. That's fine too. But with his attitude at the meeting, and then when we did and I didn't even realize the case was so frivolous, it never rose to the level of me remembering him, right? It took me a while to get it. But when we originally, did the Oppo research on him, we have a guy who does pretty good Oppo. And I saw that he was stealing from cannabis clients. The hypocrisy was just overwhelming. So we did start to attack him. We do that, all stuff that's true. And, that's actually created some interesting people that have reached out to me, and somehow these link together, I think, in a weird way. And not to say that you have to be for one and not the other, but I do think the cool kids basically think they own this town and that they hate progress. They don't like me personally because I'm outspoken, and on my Instagram page I use bad language. And by the way, interestingly enough, I called dog killer. If you need me to shut up, just let me know. I'll stop talking. Interestingly enough, I called Uranga dog killer, who's on the Coastal Commission. And that's why when they heard about that, why they started disliking me. Now, this is a guy who didn't take care of his 2 dogs, the worst kind of neglect. The ears were eaten off. I put a mailer out in his district. One of them ended up dying. The other one got rescued. The worst kind of animal abuse, right? All I did was pass forward the pictures. Somebody gave them to me. They knew I'd be the guy that would pass them forward. But he's on the Coastal Commission. So in a weird way, these are related. They're mad that I passed along pictures. Not that I used the dogs, which you shouldn't be mad at. And I don't know the exact story, but somehow, and I don't know if it's this property or the Pier property, but they got him to vote how they wanted. And they're angry because I attacked their guy, Uranga. And now, they're going to do everything they can. I'm probably done. I'm not going to get a license. But I do think a recall is in order. And I just don't like people who think they could politically muscle with impunity. And we're willing to spend the money. We're not going to get an ROI on it to initiate the recall for Obagi. It is at the high threshold. We're finishing up our summary right now. We actually got confused. It was 200 words up, 400 words. We got our signature gatherers in the other room. By the way, if you want to, we're looking for 30-ish proponents, name and addresses. We're going to go hit the streets. We have a few. And then we need 25% of the total signatures to recall them. So a little bit of a rabbit hole. But, to answer your question, if you didn't know it was there, you wouldn't even know it was there. It's like any other retail business. And it actually brings economic activity, not the reverse. We really are an anchor tenant. I think we'd serve 600-700 people in Redondo Beach per day. We always get spots with good parking. All the businesses around us love us. We do cross promotions. Our passion.
I'm sorry. Did you say good parking? There's good parking here somewhere? Y'all didn't tell me.
There's good parking in Redondo.
We do our best. But
Elliot, to follow up on what you've been saying, your businesses, benefit the cannabis using community, but the dispensaries aren't exactly like a corner deli or a family market. What do the dispensaries bring to the greater community?
Well, so just to, we're Weed for the People. We're very proud of this. I'm actually glad you hit me up with a softball. We relentlessly pursue our community outreach. We did about 20 different cities, toy drives just recently. We do food giveaways. We do cleanups. You'll see me there cleaning the freeway in South LA. We advocate for the industry itself. There would be no social equity licenses if not for Catalyst in Long Beach. We fought for 8 additional. Well, it was originally 5. It went to 8, but we opened the door. Ironically, the progressives, in quotes, were blocking it, and the industry itself that pretends to be progressive. We fought relentlessly for social equity licenses to be here in Long Beach. We give out backpacks to children that are underprivileged. We help give out books to the immigrant children that they kept here in Long Beach. I'm more than happy to send you a deck of all our community outreach. For a small company. No matter where we go, we always give more than we take. We're partners with Music Changing Lives, one of our big partners, which helps at-risk youth with the arts. Everywhere we've gone, we've built up the block, et cetera, et cetera. So when it comes to community outreach, this is not a I'm not over puffing, but I would put ours against anybody's. And then where is there more jobs right now in California that are entry-level jobs? The cannabis industry. These are entry-level jobs. We're fully unionized, right? So great starting wage, medical benefits, retirement benefits, no education needed. A third of the people that work up here at HQ, we keep it pretty lean, started as bud tenders, which is, in theory at the bottom, and they've worked their way all the way up to the top. This is a huge emerging industry. There's tax reform that's needed, and there's cities that need to come online. But no matter what Catalyst does, we've created 250 union jobs, probably soon to be 500, going on 1,000. But there's 300,000 jobs in this industry that have not yet been created just because cities haven't moved. And a lot of the market is still in the illegal market. But over time, I think that will change. And no matter where we go, there's a need. I have 3 food banks that stay at my properties for free. We've given out tens and tens of thousands of pounds of food. I mean, I don't want to just brag about everything we've done, but if community outreach is the question, again, in all humility, it is really my favorite part of the job. My joke is I'm only the CEO because I was the first guy here, and it's my day job. But that really my passion is fighting for the industry is part of it, but the community outreach goes way beyond that.
Listen, we have this question for you, but I can't have you answer it now because I promised the people that we were going to keep it short, and we are going to make sure that you get to come back next time.
I want to answer that.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because I'm an open book, and I don't want to have it be anything that's strange. So Richard Montgomery is a consultant of ours. Whatever. I don't think it went quite according to plan, but such is life. And then we did make a few campaign contributions. If we made one to Nils, it's been reported. I can't specifically remember, but we did make some up there. We do make campaign contributions. So it's possible we probably did. I think we made some. They were the minimum amount. It wasn't some major amount. I will say this: I don't think they like us, but I don't deny the campaign contributions nor the representation of Montgomery. So that's that's all stuff that we do above board. And look, we're I'm a hustler at heart too. We do a lot of good for the community, but our advantage of writing an initiative, we know where the real estate is beforehand, which, by the way, I'm ditching my property at the end of the month. And we put things in the initiative that we think are good policy, which brings in the top operators that know how to open a store, that are labor friendly. And, it doesn't eliminate the field, but it does narrow it down. And I think what's happening.
What about this question right here, real quick, before we get out of here?
Is this? No, he threatened to sue me. I told him to shove it up his whatever, but he did threaten defamation. It clearly says alleged. We have really good campaign attorneys to look at it. It was great. It dropped on Christmas Eve. Not to be petty, but it kind of, I was with my 4 kids and my wife, and I really enjoyed that. Let me get that in. But I will say it was great that the mailer dropped on Christmas Eve, the Grinch mailer. His face was superimposed on the Grinch. Not my original idea. I wanted to send the mailer. But to me, again, it's simple. There's just a massive amount of hypocrisy. How was that guy have the nerve at a city council meeting? And he probably remembered me. I didn't remember him. He had sued me. He didn't recuse himself. And then he's, basically allegedly, maybe be careful, stealing from cannabis clients. And he's represented a bunch of cannabis clients. He's fairly known in the industry. And none of that came out on the dais. So, again, this is going to sound a little harsh just the way I talk. But sometimes you got to put one body on the floor, politically speaking, metaphorically speaking, just to make sure that the people in power understand, you're not to be trifled with lightly.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you showing up today. I appreciate all of you for answering some of these questions. You're welcome to come back. I'm sure y'all already know how it works around here. We'll have questions and comments all up and through the metaverse and directly. So please stay tuned. Make sure that you stay in touch. And if you see some questions you want to answer, or you have questions of your own, let's make sure that we bring you back to be able to do just that. So I want to thank you all for being here, and hopefully we've answered some of these tough questions for our residents. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right.